Hi, I'm Sophia,
And I'm Katie.
and today we'll be talking about Virginia Woolf's essay Shakespeare's Sister, and maybe why she might have chosen Shakespeare to write about in a feminist essay.
Yeah, so I personally thought about it as like the fact that Shakespeare is a very prominent person in history through several genres, obviously. And because Shakespeare has been so glorified from like years and years, for years and years, I
Mhm.
think the fact that he is in a position of power because of privilege and the fact that he is a male isn't really thought about too much. And I feel like Wolf almost kind of it's like almost like tears apart that idea that he's in a position of like wealth because he was a genius by talking about Shakespeare's sister and like how if Shakespeare had a sister that was of the same like literary merit as he was, she wouldn't have been in the same place just because she was a woman.
Yeah, I mean, Shakespeare obviously had a sense of genius that took him really far, but he was supported by this system that would only raise a wealthy man to that kind of position of power and like cultural influence. So a woman with the same kind of poetic sense to her wouldn't have ever had the same opportunities. So I think that was just interesting that she had us consider um, his society and maybe how that affected his own rise to fame, and also just women at the time who were like often in the background of stories and poetry and all the other works of literary merit that were produced at the time. They were often written by men. So women were these background characters, and they didn't get to write themselves into history. And if they did have a sense of genius to them, they wouldn't have been able to achieve this same level that Shakespeare achieved. Like I think she said at one point that who shall measure the heat and violence of a poet's heart when caught and entangled in a woman's body, to kind of highlight the entrapment of femininity in Elizabethan society.
I agree. And then I think that the way that Wolf writes about Shakespeare's sister really like you said, like emphasizes that. And I think the fact like it ends with like such a drastic ending, like the fact that she kills herself, I think is like extreme. Like it's a very extreme side of what Wolf is like striving to say. But I also think that that's like a very like real thing that she was saying. And like at one point she writes that any woman born with a great gift in the 16th century would certainly have gone crazed, shot herself, or ended her days in some lonely cottage outside the village, half witch, half wizard, feared and mocked at. And I
Yeah.
think that that's just like something that I never really thought about before in terms of like literature and like women in literature and stuff, is just the fact that like I understood that a lot of people went under aliases like Charlotte Bronte and stuff like that, but I never really understood why. I guess, and I think that Virginia Woolf talks about that in such like a interesting way that really brings to light the fact that women really didn't have a voice to talk about the same things that men did, and that like brought men up much higher in a society. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think just the way she writes about it is so impactful because she uses this really harsh ending to this theoretical story of Judith, Shakespeare's sister, just having this genius and having this sense of potential and shooting herself because it was so painful to not be able to like put out her art into the world. Um, yeah, I think her using an actual story in this narrative within her essay like really makes it convincing because it's just the way she frames it, and just death is like really like has you launch yourself into Elizabethan society, and think about it a little bit deeper, because I think now looking back on it, like it's a period of time and we have these works written by men from that time, and we just kind of look at it, we know it was unfair and we move on. But she launches us into like, if you were a woman at that time, that's what it would have been like.
Exactly. I agree. And even like she talks about like the fact that Shakespeare wrote about women like Cleopatra and like Ophelia and stuff like that, but they're never really shown to be like women of what women actually were like. So I think that Wolf really like brings to light what women would actually be like and what times were actually like.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.